Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. At this point, we gotta coin a phrase, folks. Only in California, and more specifically, only in Oakland, California. We just covered the story last week of failed California Governor Gavin Newsom, the man in charge of the failed state of California, the man who's overseen a drastic increase in homelessness in his state, poverty in general, walking around the streets of Oakland getting attacked, assaulted by a homeless man. Almost poetic in its karmic nature. And so you thought that one was funny, you thought that one was bad. Well, what are the odds that literally a week later, essentially the exact same type of thing except different context, happened in the exact same city of Oakland in California? It's a failed state, folks. As crime and poverty is rising, shooting through the roof at unprecedented levels like you haven't seen since the 1990s, failed California Democrat leaders are getting a taste of their own medicine, so to speak, getting a feel of what it's actually like to be a citizen of the cities they rule. As Oakland's chief of violence prevention had an encounter with armed robbers on the street during a news segment. You can't make this stuff up. You can't write it. Gavin Newsom, at the core of a homelessness crisis and poverty crisis in California, getting assaulted by a homeless person on the streets of Oakland. Then the chief of violence prevention, as crime is skyrocketing, is the victim of an armed robbery during a newscast on the streets. Folks, California is a complete cesspool, and I got some interesting things to show you. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so just take a look at this headline. Armed robbers held up news crew as it interviewed Oakland's chief of violence prevention. You have got to be kidding me. Two armed robbers held up a television news crew that was interviewing Oakland's director of violence prevention outside City Hall on Monday afternoon, just hours after the police chief warned of worsening crime amid cuts to police budget. Oakland police reported that the two suspects approached the newscasters at 3:09 p.m. and tried to steal a camera. After a scuffle, a security officer pulled out a gun and ordered the suspects to leave. They fled without the camera. No injuries were reported. A statement from the police department described the incident but did not identify Guillermo Cespedes, head of the city's Department of Violence Prevention, as a victim. Cespedes told the Chronicle that he was at the scene of an attempted robbery on Monday, and a police watch commander confirmed he was being interviewed when the crime occurred. Our colleagues were conducting an interview at the Oakland City Hall when they were approached by two armed individuals. Lisa Catalan, a spokesperson of NBC Bay Area, said, "Thankfully, our colleagues are safe and unharmed." Democrats are in denial, folks. You gotta be in total denial to have it hit you in the face and to still not admit that the policies you've enacted, that your cuts to police budgets and the enabling of street justice and street violence, the enabling of political violence, is not at the core of this epidemic of crime that we've seen across the country. You gotta just be lying to yourself. But worst of all, lying to the actual people. What makes this situation extra frustrating is it happened directly after the Oakland police chief was warning about this exact thing right here. Oakland police chief delivers emotional rebuke of city's defund campaign. Those, quote, speed bumps are 65 lives lost so far this year. Oakland police chief Lerone Armstrong on Monday delivered an impassioned rebuke of the city council's recent decision to further defund law enforcement in the city, arguing fewer officers on the streets will only result in more crime and more lives lost. The council voted last week to redirect $18 million from the police budget to community violence prevention programs, despite repeated pleas from Armstrong and even the city's liberal mayor, Libby Schaaf, Democrat, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. The council's decision comes even as a wave of violence continues to rock Oakland, highlighted by another 4 homicides in just the last few days. On July 1st, is the city going to be safer than it is today? Armstrong questioned during the news conference, pointing out that violent crime is on the rise across the board. We find ourselves in crisis, he said. We find ourselves reeling from a weekend of violence where we have seen 4 homicides over a 3-day period. Our shootings are up over 70% compared to last year. Our robbery is up 11% this year. There have been 1,300 robberies in this city already this year. Our carjackings are up nearly 88%, so we clearly see that crime is out of control in the city of Oakland, and our response was for less police resources, he continued, explaining that the forthcoming budget cuts will have an immediate negative effect. We already have a rough time responding to the high numbers of calls that we get. This will make it tougher, he argued, adding later, our department is not growing, it's shrinking. Later during the news conference, Armstrong eloquently put into perspective the effects that a decreased police presence has had and will have on the city. He noted that during the budget meetings, one city council member acknowledged that as the city adapted to the new way of policing, it may encounter speed bumps or challenges along the way. For me, those, quote, speed bumps are 65 so far this year, 65 lives lost, Armstrong said, referring to the dozens of lives lost to homicides. These crimes are not speed bumps, amongst their people. The police chief recalled arriving at the scene of a recent shooting in the city in which a man's life was taken. While there, he said a woman confronted him, charging him to do something about it. Armstrong paused to gather his emotions before acknowledging, without the resources, it makes it challenging to make Oakland safe. Incredibly, not long after the chief aired his grievances, reports surfaced alleging that armed robbers had held up a news crew attempting to interview the city's chief of violence prevention. And so it all comes full circle now, doesn't it? They're not only lying to themselves, they're lying to you. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like the Democrat elitist that she truly is, recently told people to stop with the hysteria, stop being hysterical when it comes to violent crime in the neighborhood that you inhabit. Who is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking to exactly when she says something like that? She's speaking to the actual residents of Oakland themselves, New York City, Democrat areas in general, experiencing a massive surge, a rise in crime, where largely these people vote Democrat. And what are they getting for it? They're getting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez looking down at them and telling them to stop the hysteria. Who loses at the end of the day? Is it Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who continues to increase in fame and get millions of views and retweets on all of her tweets every single day? Or the individuals who inhabit these neighborhoods and don't want to see their police departments defunded? I mean, just check this out. Voters on the streets of Oakland telling you how they feel.
Many people complain there aren't enough officers.
We need more police in Oakland.
So often people broken in to the cars, homes. So no, I disagree with defunding the police.
Many people say they're fed up with the gun violence.
I understand why people want to defund the police. They think the police are violent, but who's going to save us when we need to call them?
A lot of people just do not feel safe because we need police in the community need to work with the police in order to help curb some of this violence.
And so my question to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, those legitimate concerns from exactly that, concerned citizens and voters, most likely Democrat voters, is that the hysteria that you're talking about? I mean, talk about disgusting rhetoric. You know, I always use the word callous, but it's just a complete lack of compassion for the actual people you're supposed to represent. Not a care in the world for the actual constituents that put you in office. It's what we see with Democrats each and every single time. Well, Democrats and rhinos. Rhinos do the exact same thing. These type of politicians that promise one thing, do another, or don't take in the actual voters' input when making decisions and do whatever they want based on establishment needs or personal political gain or ideological reasons. People wonder why Donald Trump and more Trumpism-style candidates are so popular. It's because they don't do this. They actually represent the needs and the wants, the policies that their constituents actually want enacted in government, while these far-left Democrats operate from a level of self-righteousness that's just so beyond the pale, so out of control. Their constituents are literally pleading with them, please don't defund the police, stop demonizing the police, we need them. We're scared to let our children's out on the streets, but the callous Democrats just don't care and do it anyways. Another $18 million removed from police departments in the city of Oakland as they're seeing astronomical skyrocketing in crime. And what do you think's gonna happen? The actual community will be more vulnerable and more victimized than ever before. But that's what I got for you guys in this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. Of course, we're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. I gotta get back to work though. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.